Hey, what I wanted to about today is why I grow so many veggies when my small family, just my wife and I, couldn't possibly eat them all. We traditionally have eaten out a lot. We do eat some of the veggies. I like to snack on them during the day, but we don't we don't cook them and eat vegetables every single day on a regular basis. I'm not growing food to sustain us. So why grow so much? Well, the reality is we give almost all of it away. We keep a little bit of it for ourselves for what cooking that we can do. Um, Historically, my wife and I, both working, are usually pretty busy during the day and way into the night, and so in our other lives and our work, often don't really have time to do a lot of cooking in that way. And um, so why have such a big garden? Well, number one, I enjoy it. I enjoy growing, and I hope for most gardeners that's kind of the thing, is whether you actually would eat it or not. I just enjoy it. You enjoy the process, and that's the case for me. I enjoy growing it. Number two, I like the optionality of it. I mean, I grow enough that if we did want to sustain ourselves on it, potentially we could. Maybe I don't know if I'm really growing enough that would really sustain my wife and I, but with only two of us, it's possible. I am growing quite a bit. So just the fact that I don't is fine, but the fact that I theoretically could, if I just didn't give it all away, I could rechannel it to feeding us if there was some reason I had for doing that. I could do that, and so I enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy knowing that I have created that kind of flexibility and optionality for myself. Options, I love. So I often think about options are the spice of life, and other people have told me that, and I hold on to it and think it's so true, and I love that part of it as well. But of course, obviously I don't do all this work just for the optionality of it, just to have the option. I do the work because I love it. I love growing. And yeah, it's kind of fun to be able to do something for the community, do something I love, and then have it help the community and be able to give it away and support our community in that way is cool. So that's the story behind why I grow such a big garden. It's not I'm not a vegetarian or or somebody who eats out of this garden on a daily basis as a practical matter. So just thought I would share that, and happy growing, everyone, and we'll talk later. Well, the weather's cooled down quite a bit here in Portland. Over this last week, it got down to the 70s. It's actually during the day, it's kind of in the high 60s, and then it's hitting a high. Today, it's going to hit a high, I think they say of 75, but in the last few days, it's been hitting highs of low 70s. So, yeah, we go from high 90s and 100-degree weather all the way down to 70s, and that's always been one of the weather challenges of gardening here. It feels like in the last few years is that we hit extremes. Like there's no, like, it'd be nice if we just had like a couple of months of solid 75 to 80-degree weather, but it doesn't seem to ever work like that. It's either 85 to 100 or below that. So uh, what I have behind me here um, is the compost area. So this is my 3-bin compost system, and you see other people do this. Look, if you kind of look around this on YouTube, if you're not familiar with composting using 3 bins, it's a pretty common thing. And I've got some old garden boards kind of holding the bins up around the sides, and then pallets on the front that can be swung out like doors, essentially. And so we finally, it took a little while, it took several weekends, but we finally emptied this bin, which is the closest to the street. We have our composting area here closest to the street. It's a corner lot here, so it's closest to one of the streets, but the waste management company is great in the sense that, they'll let me put my compost cans out here to pick up. So it allows me to kind of sort through here and choose, like, what am I keeping to compost on site and what isn't going to compost well here, and just throw it in the bins, and then it's just right there for the waste company to pick up, which is awesome. But what I've done is we've emptied this out, and then we're filling up this middle one with all of our waste now. So it's still kind of in a decomposing process. If I can get away with putting all the stuff that we're going to have over the next few weeks here, then that's what I'll do, so that we can eventually empty the whole thing back over here to turn it for the sake of turning it and aerating it and that kind of thing. But may not be able to, because during this time of year we're going to generate a ton of waste, compost, essentially a ton of green matter, as we're harvesting and cleaning things up in the beds and everything. And so what I think what might happen is that I have to give up and start putting new stuff in here as well, and then later I'll just turn this over to the top of it and let the whole thing decompose together. Meanwhile, over in the over on this side here, to my surprise, after we basically dug through all these beds and sorted them and everything, and to my surprise, we have a massive amount of good stuff to use there. And a lot of it is decomposed compost that have been kind of sitting in these back bins for over a year now. But I think one of the reasons that we have so much in there, and it's nice and fluffy, and you pick it up, it feels like compost, but I think one of the reasons that it is that there's so much of it and that there's a lot of like extra fluffy matter in there is that I use so much potting soil here to start seeds, because we start everything here from seeds from scratch, from seeds, you know, putting in cell trays, the potting soil. And I think I've got wheelbarrow loads of extra potting soil over time, you know, from cell trays that went bad and I didn't get the start out of it, and so just throwing away the whole potting soil. But I'm not throwing away, I get throw in the compost. So I guess my point is, I think I have a lot of like potting mix in here along with the compost, which I think is great from a texture standpoint. So this stuff is good and will be great to put out in the garden beds. The only downside is that I haven't really mastered hot composting, and so invariably whenever I put my compost on the beds, I get weeds, because I'm not hot composting at a high enough temperature to kill the weeds on a regular basis. And even if I do get it hot enough for a short period of time, I'm have it out here pretty much unprotected, and so the weed seeds from around the garden are falling in there anyway. So that is one advantage I do like from getting kind of the compost from offsite, is that it typically doesn't have the weed seeds that my own does in it. But one trick that I do sometimes use is I'll use this kind of thing for kind of filling beds where it needs a lot of compost, and then I'll still use kind of the stuff that is a little more premium from offsite as a top dressing, just to make it look really nice, and also maybe suppress some of the weeds that would otherwise be coming out of this. So yeah, that's my composting setup. Thought I would share that with you here, and off to garden.